All right, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar with WebGility and eCC Desktop and Avalara AvaTax. And today we're going to talk about sales tax compliance and automation with Avalara AvaTax, and today is March 20th. So a bit of housekeeping before we get started. Today's webinar is going to last for about an hour. Everyone is muted as they dial in. If you have any questions, you can submit those questions via the GoToMeeting question screen. You'll see in your GoToMeeting dashboard, if you expand the orange arrow, you'll see the dashboard. You can add your questions into there. And we'll aggregate the questions for our question and answer forum at the end of the presentation. Today's presenters are myself, Allegra Mitchell, and I am the Customer Success Manager at WebGility, and I have with me from Avalara, Ian Clyde, who is the National Sales Manager at Avalara. So today's agenda. Today we're going to talk about Avalara and AvaTax. We're going to go through how Avalara AvaTax calculates sales tax in QuickBooks using the eCC Desktop plugin. If you do want to kind of see this real time, we did have two previous webinars that are recorded, and you can watch those at your leisure. But today is just going to be a quick, this is how it works, this is how it connects, this is how it calculates. You can always check out those previous webinars that we had in January as well as December of last year. And then after I talk about how eCC works with Avalara AvaTax, I'll hand it over to Ian, and he's going to talk about the basics of sales tax. We're going to talk about time versus risk. Time in how much time you as business owners are devoting to making sure that you're calculating the sales tax correctly, and the risk that involves if you're doing it wrong, looking at what can happen if you are calculating sales tax incorrectly for an extended period of time. And with that, we're going to talk about why it's important to be tax compliant, and also how Avalara calculates tax, and also the benefits of using Avalara AvaTax as a solution. And then we'll go right into a question and answer forum to address any questions that you have. So a little bit about who we are. I usually do this before all webinars. If this is your first webinar, welcome. And if you have joined a previous webinar that we've had, welcome back. So a little bit about who we are. With WebGility, we are headquartered in sunny San Francisco, and we have our development and support centers here in Indore, India. We serve thousands of small to medium-sized businesses worldwide, and we've been certified with Intuit since 2007. Our company is partnered with top e-commerce platforms for shipping and also hosting of QuickBooks. And we are also partnered with hundreds of web designers, developers, and QuickBooks Pro advisors that all promote all of our products. And our products are eCC Desktop, eCC Cloud, and ShipLark. So about the eCC Desktop Avalara AvaTax plugin. What does it do? Well, let's talk about eCC in general. Within eCC, you can manage all your orders in one place. You can automatically pull in those orders from your online shopping cart. With the AvaTax plugin, you can assess the sales tax as soon as that order is posted to QuickBooks. You can also process shipping and generate shipping labels within eCC Desktop. And when you're posting orders to QuickBooks and also using Avalara AvaTax to generate that correct sales tax, you can do that and record those transactions either as sales receipts or invoices. And when you're doing shipping, you can update the online order status and send the tracking information to the online shopping cart. And if you have inventory or using multiple channels, eCC Desktop can also synchronize your inventory between your multiple shopping carts and your QuickBooks. So how does Avalara AvaTax connect to eCC Desktop? Well, it connects in the taxes screen of the store configuration, and if you don't have an Avalara account, you can always sign up you can sign up with Avalara within our product, and if you're using a test account, you can also use that as well. So you just put in your account information, your license key, which is given to you via email after you sign up for Avalara AvaTax, and your company code, which you structure and set that up when you start the account. And then after that, you test the connection, everything is connected, and then AvaTax will be the line item for any of the tax calculations for the in-state tax. You can, of course, have the out-of-state tax be just a usual out-of-state tax item in QuickBooks. So Avalara is going to be doing the work, and QuickBooks is just going to have that work reflected on the transaction within QuickBooks. So this is a little bit how it works. You, of course, post the order to QuickBooks, and the second screenshot is showing the AvaTax calculation of $4.33. As you can see, there is a slight difference between the tax that is calculated in the online shopping cart and the tax that Avalara has correctly assessed when the order is posted to QuickBooks. And this is the importance of utilizing Avalara AvaTax as a solution for calculating sales tax accurately. It is this discrepancy between what is in your online shopping cart and how that and the percentage of tax that is being calculated against what is truly the percentage based on the myriad of ways of sales taxes calculated for a particular state or a county. So it is that discrepancy we're going to be looking at, and that is the discrepancy as a business owner that can really, really get you into a lot of trouble if you're not aware of. And the reason for this webinar is we want you to be aware of the importance of calculating sales tax correctly, because it can, and Ian will talk a little bit about this, the penalty for that is extremely detrimental, and it could have a lasting effect on your business. And so with that, as I mentioned before, Avalara AvaTax, when eCC posts the order to QuickBooks, Avalara AvaTax is doing the work, and QuickBooks just attaches that work that Avalara AvaTax is doing to the actual sales receipt or transaction within QuickBooks. And so if there is an adjustment or a discrepancy between the tax that is charged in the online shopping cart order and what Avalara AvaTax has correctly calculated, it will always be manifested as an adjustment, and you'll see that adjustment within the transaction in QuickBooks. So if you're ever seeing an adjustment or, tax amount undercharged, you know that you have some, that should definitely, raise a flag in your head saying, uh-oh, my online shopping cart is not calculating the taxes fluidly or correctly for this order. So as a business owner, you've undercharged this client 62 cents. But imagine this, if you have hundreds of orders a week, 62 cents can easily balloon into, $620 that you have undercharged your users, that you have to pay as a business owner out of your pocket when taxes are remitted at the end of the year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ian, and he's going to talk about sales tax and Avalara AvaTax, and really kind of illuminate the risk and of calculating sales tax incorrectly, and talk about the benefits of utilizing Avalara AvaTax as a solution to solve that issue or solve that problem, and so you have a peace of mind to know that within your business, your tax calculation for the sales tax is always correct. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ian.
Perfect. So I'll just wait for you to, let's see, make me the presenter, and then we'll get going. All right. Okay. So my name's Ian Clyde. I'm a National Sales Director at Avalara. I've worked with our QuickBooks market space for the last 6 years and currently manage a number of what we call connectors. So our tax engine is cloud-based and talks to a number of different applications so that it can calculate tax and manage it. So I'm going to just start out with uh, a fact from a survey, and that's 44% of accounting professionals who've worked for a company that has been audited and decided to contest the audit thought it was more stressful than a divorce. For a lot of small companies, they don't worry too much about sales tax audits till they get audited, and at that point, it's just too late. So here's a list of some of the misconceptions. We're too small to be audited. I'm a manufacturer and I don't have to collect sales tax. Well, some do and some don't. My business is only in one state and we're only located in this state, so we don't have to collect sales tax anywhere. We have services that we sell primarily, so we're not taxable. There's lots of states that tax services. Going back to manufacturers, you have the same thing with distributors. A lot of times you may not need to collect tax, but you certainly better have your exemption certificates on file, and they better be correct. And you know, the last one, and we hear this all the time, is that small businesses and even some mid-sized businesses say, well, I've never been audited, so I'm not really worried about it. That's a pretty risky way to go about your business. You want to make sure that you're compliant. So here's the list of challenges that you generally have to be compliant with sales tax. The first is nexus. Where do you need to collect and remit tax? The second is collecting and maintaining exemption certificates from your non-taxable customers. Then knowing and keeping up to date the product and service taxability for the different things that you sell. Once you have that, if you have a taxable sale into a location where you have to collect tax, what's the proper rate assignment? Of course, you also have to remit the tax that you collect. You have to have reporting, and you also have to have reporting at the level that you can defend yourself if you're audited. And when you take a look at that whole list of things, you want to then think, hey, well, how can I do this cost effectively and keep the risk at a low level? So I'm going to explain how we do that, but I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about who we are. The founder of our company, who's the guy in the top picture pointing his fingers at you, built an online tax engine in the late 1990s for a major e-commerce company that had nationwide tax compliance requirements. When he built that tax engine, he recognized that if he made it a robust tax engine so that it would handle all the different components of sales tax and built connectors to all the major accounting applications and shop carts, he'd be able to provide cost-effective sales tax compliance to the small and mid-sized business market. All that existed up till that point was expensive on-site software that was really developed for Fortune 1000 size companies. He hit the nail on the head, and we have thousands of customers, but we have lots of them that are household names that you should recognize. We also have connectors, hundreds of different applications. So here's a handful of the ERP or accounting applications that we tie into. In the QuickBooks world, we are the only gold certified developer with Intuit that's a sales tax service provider. At this point, we do billions of tax calculations for the customer base. We manage millions of exemption certificates. We'll probably do in the neighborhood of 500,000 tax returns for the customer base. We're the largest certified service provider to the Streamlined Sales Tax Organization, and we become the industry leader in automating sales tax compliance. So this is a small list of some of the accolades that we have. I know a large percentage of the WebGility user base is on QuickBooks, so I put this up there just to show that we are a gold certified developer with Intuit. So this is how our tax engine works. The grayed out invoice represents anywhere where sales tax needs to be calculated. So that can be an invoice, a credit memo, a sales order. It can be a shopping cart as well. In the case of working with WebGility, there's a lot of shopping carts that don't have any connector to AvaTax. So you're manually trying to do your best And in a lot of cases with a tax engine that's just really not that easy to work with and is manually difficult to keep up to date. So you'll see the arrow here between the A and the cloud, which is our cloud-based tax engine AvaTax, and the application. We connect in, and what Allegra was talking about is we tie into eCC. So when a tax calculation is necessary, it'll call out to AvaTax. It'll calculate tax based upon your company's sales tax profile that you set up, and it'll put the tax back. In the case of working with eCC, it does a reconciliation from whatever you put into your shopping cart. If you work with multiple shopping carts and some of them have captures AvaTax, you'll skip that step. It'll just calculate tax right in the shopping cart. The beauty here is that we manage all the rates and all the rules from the states and local jurisdictions. We also do the returns and the remittance for you. So once a month, our customers will make one remittance to a trust account, and then we'll create, file, and remit each individual tax return. The beauty of this is that you don't see an arrow between the invoice and the states or your business in the states. We manage that compliance portion of your business, which is going to be a more effective and less risky way to do it. So when AvaTax is doing a tax calculation, there's a few different things that are happening in the background. First of all, there's a precise rate determination. So there's over 11,000 tax jurisdictions in North America. We manage all those rates and boundaries, and they're always kept up to date. There's also this concept of what's called sourcing rules. So that's which address do you use to assign the tax jurisdictions. In some cases, it's the ship from address. In other cases, it's the ship. In most cases, it's the ship to address. And then even in some states, you have to have it's mixed sourcing. So part of the sourcing is driven by the ship from address, and some of the sourcing is driven from the ship to address. Our system also has address validation. So we'll take an address, run it through a U.S. Postal Service certified database, and return a validated address. So one, this helps us in ensuring that there's a correct assignment of tax rates, but secondly, for a lot of our customers, helps cut down on shipping. Our system also has product and service taxability research inside of it. So a good example of that is downloadable software. If you sell downloadable software, that's taxable, last I checked, in 33 states. Our system has those rules. Let's say that you're an apparel vendor and you sell clothing. Well, apparel in New York City under $110 is not taxable. Outside the city it is. Our system has those rules in it. Then, of course, tied into the tax engine, you have the reporting, and then there's some other features for consumers use tax and global tax calculations. But that's what's happening inside the tax engine, and it's all based upon the profile that you set up for your company, telling it where you need to collect tax and a little bit about your products and services. So I had mentioned the streamlined sales tax in another slide. I want to come back to that because it's pretty important to a lot of our customers. The streamlined sales tax organization is 24 states that have banded together to simplify sales tax collection. The whole goal of the organization is to make it easier on businesses and less costly, but more will be compliant, and the states will get more tax. And from a business standpoint, you'll be at a lower level of risk. So as a certified service provider, it gives a lot of benefits to our customers. One, our rates and rules are certified. You basically don't have any audits with those states. Secondly, we can register you at no cost for all the states at one time. This is if you're a company that's expanding rapidly and going national, this one adds speed, and secondly, it reduces costs significantly compared to registering in all the different states individually. Third, we have a special program where we can do the tax returns free of charge in certain scenarios. You have to be what's called a voluntary remitter, and you can see on the screen there a couple of thresholds that you have to be under for that to happen. You can also see there's the list of states below. So if any of you are in that scenario where you're growing rapidly and this might be of interest, you can certainly ask me questions later. Coming back to the whole topic of Nexus, this is where a ton of risk lies for companies, and that's where do you need to collect and remit tax. So current legislation is based upon a 1992 U.S. Supreme Court case, the Quill Corporation versus the state of North Dakota. Essentially what happened was Quill is an office products retailer. They were providing software for their customers in North Dakota to place and track orders. The state of North Dakota said, well, it's physical presence in our state. You're sending your customers disks and catalogs in that state. Quill argued that it's not enough of a connection that they should be required to collect and remit tax, and they won that. What came out of the case was that a company has to have a substantial physical presence in another state. Now, a lot of companies don't understand, well, what's that threshold of substantial? So I want to show you here there's a number of different Nexus creating activities, and the list is growing. So the recession that we just went through, many states were starving for revenue. They've made more activities Nexus creating, and they've also made more products and services taxable. So some of the simple ones are traveling sales representatives or installers. And the thing to keep in mind is it doesn't matter whether they're a W-2 employee or not. So if you use contract installers or you have manufacturers, distributors that take a commission, but they don't work directly for you, if they're directly representing your business, they are creating Nexus. So some of the questions it's worth going through and asking to help outline whether you do have an issue with collecting in other states is, do you have traveling sales representatives? Do you use any contract labor? Do you have any company representatives that live in a state? Here's one that gets a lot of companies, is that they actually have leased or rental property in a state, and then, of course, promoting your products or service in a state. And the rules in a lot of states are pretty lenient. You might have a couple weeks that you could go each year before it creates permanent Nexus, but some states it's as little as a single day. I want to go back and touch on sales tax rates. I'm going to make the assumption that a lot of you are using addresses that to put rates into your shopping carts, and the rates that you're using are zip code based. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hop out of this real quick, and you're going to see that I have a map up from on my screen. So this is avataxrates.com. It is a graphical representation of what happens in the background of AvaTax. It has all the tax jurisdictions in North America mapped. I'm going to go ahead and put in Commerce City, Colorado. And you're going to see it's 9.25% in Commerce City, and there are 5 tax jurisdictions that make up the composite tax rate of 9.25%. If I keep scrolling in, I'm going to get to an area in Commerce City that really shows you the reality of using zip codes. If I click in the light green, it's going to show 4 3/4. What you're going to see is Commerce City is not listed. If I click into the dark green, 4.5% Commerce City tax rate. So let me get that to go away, and let's look here. So in this case, I'm lot by lot. I'll make it a little bigger to see. I'm in the city, light green, or out of the city, light green. The next lot over, the dark green. In the city, out of the city, in the city, out of the city, in the city, out of the city, in the city. So lot by lot by lot, it goes in and out of the city jurisdiction, and it's a 4.5% difference. I can promise you that those are not different zip codes. You have to have a rooftop level assignment of tax jurisdictions to get it right in a lot of different locations throughout the United States. And that's one of the beauties of AvaTax. We take these addresses, turn them into a latitude and longitude, and pinpoint them on the map, and it's the most accurate assignment of tax rates in the industry. So when it comes down to doing sales tax, there's different choices on how you're going to do it. You can do it manually, or you can try to automate it. The challenge with doing it manually is that generally it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a high-level employee working on sales tax. It's not a business-building activity. They should be working on building the business. CFOs and owners and controllers tend to push it to an administrative level. The challenge there is you generally don't have somebody who's an expert in sales tax, and secondly, those types of positions tend to have a lot of turnover. So there's a challenge to have continuity of compliance over time. The problem that you have in either way is that mistakes can be really costly. So the final piece of the puzzle when you're talking about tax compliance is doing the returns piece. So I've gone through Nexus, I've talked about the rates, a little bit about product and service taxability. Finally, you have to remit the taxes. If you collect tax and remit in one state, and depending upon that state's return, it may not be all that difficult, but you do have to do it every month or every quarter generally, and you have to have it done timely and filled out properly. With our tax return solution, you make one remittance to a trust account, and we create, file, and remit each individual tax return. Key to fill the forms out properly, file on time, get any timely filing discounts that you're entitled to. We'll answer any notices to the states, and then we provide a full record back of what we've done. We have an archive of all the tax returns that we've done for our customers. So it makes it much, much easier on the business to handle the tax returns. And in some states, tax returns just for that one state are a real bear. And certainly if you get into the situation where you're doing them in 5, 10, 15, 20, or 30 states, it's not a job that anybody really wants to do. So I'm just going to go through here and share with you a few more of our customers. We work in a lot of different industries, or have customers in a lot of different industries. Certainly have a lot of customers in high tech and a lot of customers in apparel. And here's a couple of quotes that our customers have provided to us. So for executive envelope and printing solutions, AvaTax saves them 8 to 10 employee hours a week, which they figure is over $36,000 annually in employee resources. What's important here is this doesn't even take into account the benefit of reduced risk. So in 2008, the state of Washington went from changed their sourcing rules, and they actually had a large number of changes in their sales tax. But one is they went to destination-based sourcing. So there's 200 and some odd different jurisdictions in the state of Washington. It made the tax return much more difficult. So you're going to see in this case, their first tax return had 90 different tax jurisdictions that they had to include on that tax return. But since we did it, all they simply did was review the amount that was due, and we handled the rest. So I'm going to go ahead and hop out here, and we're going to go and do Q&A. So if you want to take the controls back, Allegra, I am going to pass them over to you, and we'll do a Q&A session.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, so we're now in the Q&A forum for this webinar. So I do encourage you to ask many questions because, you know, there's a lot of really good information that it's business owners and especially e-commerce business owners that are really important to take into account when calculating or remitting taxes. Now, Ian, I do have a question for you. We have like business owners who are utilizing drop shipping or fulfillment houses, and sometimes those are in different states. How would Avalara AvaTax handle the tax calculation for the certain type of orders or the certain orders that are fulfilled out of state?
Okay, so you're talking about a dropship scenario?
Yes.
Okay, so dropship scenarios get really difficult for sales tax. And in fact, I wish on this slide deck I had a dropship slide, but I don't have it in this slide deck. The problem that you have if you use drop shippers is you may be shipping into a state, or your drop shipper may be shipping into a state where they have nexus but you do not. They're going to charge you tax, but you're not charging your customer tax. So the states don't care. They know that, you know, they're going to want to collect tax in any scenario that they can. Your vendor who's drop shipping for you doesn't want the risk, so they're not going to say, I'm not going to, just because you don't have nexus, that's not my problem. If I ship to that state, I have to charge you tax. So from the standpoint of AvaTax, it's going to, you know, when you invoice, it's going to calculate tax if you tell it to, and it will not calculate tax if you tell it not to. The challenge that you have from in drop shipper scenarios is that you have to determine how you want to accommodate that problem. So a lot of times a company will just mark up their product a little bit and eat the tax that they pay on the wholesale cost of the product, or they'll get registered in that state so that they can provide an exemption certificate to their vendor. Now their vendor doesn't charge them tax, but now they're registered in that state and they have to collect and remit tax. So, you know, the states need the money. They're doing everything they can to get the sales tax one way or another. Drop shipping creates a scenario where it's a little bit difficult. Some states like California have very specific drop ship rules. So like in California, they have a gross up rule of 110% of the wholesale value that a vendor must charge you. So they don't even charge you the wholesale. They're charging you at 110% of the wholesale amount for tax if you're not registered in that state. So they're looking for ways to get tax, and they're going to bend your arm in that drop ship environment. But our tax engine is going to charge tax or not charge tax based upon your settings. The challenge is you have to have a business process or a business model to accommodate it.
I do have one other question. You know, how easy is it to set up Avalara in terms of you know adding items, and how does that work, or how long would that take, I would say?
Yeah, good question. So setup of AvaTax has a couple different components, and the complexity can vary widely depending upon the company. So let's take a simple example. You have a company that sells jewelry in one state. Well, jewelry is taxable to all taxable customers. Our tax engine defaults to fully taxable, so all you have to do is map your freight item if freight is not taxable. That's pretty simple, and then connect it to your application. A customer like that gets set up in probably a few hours. Let's take another scenario. You have a company that sells, you have a software company with lots of different ways that they deliver software. So you can download it, they ship a disk, it might have a software maintenance contract, they provide implementation services, they provide training services, they provide support, and they have sales reps throughout the United States. That's a much more difficult scenario because you have to set up the product and service taxability, which is to a lot of their different items, and they're in a bunch of states that you have to make sure you have all the jurisdictional set up correct. You know, that might take a company like that, you know, at least a few days of dedicated work to it. But you also have to remember they've got a pretty significant problem with a lot of risk tied to it. So it really depends. One of the good things about Avalara is that we provide what's called a go-live consultant or coordinator to every new account to walk them through the setup process and make sure that it gets done expeditiously and correct.
Great. Thank you, Ian. And we're actually getting a lot of questions here, so thank you to our viewers for asking questions. So our first question from one of our viewers is, if we sign up for Avalara AvaTax after signing up for WebGility, or they're asking, should we? And they're saying it looks a bit complicated, just wondering if you sign up for Avalara AvaTax, will we receive technical help?
When you say it looks complicated, you know, it depends. So it depends on your sales tax scenario. Our system makes sales tax easier. So if you've got a difficult sales tax scenario, we're definitely going to simplify your challenge. Let's give an example. Let's take the extreme. If you live in Oregon and you don't have Nexus anywhere else, your sales tax scenario is pretty simple because they don't have sales tax. So it's all relative when you say it's, you know, it looks complex. Sales tax can get extremely complex. So our system is very powerful if you need it to be, and it does take more setup time. As I said, we provide full support and a coordinator to help you get live on the system. Most customers that are going to be in the WebGility's market base or a customer base and size of customers, it will be generally a pretty easy setup. So there's a downloading of the connector and a little bit of setup of the AvaTax account. You're going to tell it what states you collect tax in, and you may need to map a couple products and services in there so that the taxability is correct. Allegra, I'm going to hop forward. I'm reading the next question, so I'll just hop into it because I can see it. It says, we have a business based in Colorado that is only e-commerce. How difficult is that to set up, and do we have to file returns in other states even though we are not technically set up in those states? Okay, so Colorado is a state with local jurisdictions with their own tax returns. Within our system, you're going to make the determination as to whether you want to collect and remit at those local levels. Our system will accommodate whatever tax strategy you have. So let's say that you're registered at the state level, collect all the state level tax and the locals that report up to the state. I showed you a rate in Commerce City. Well, Commerce City has, I'm pretty sure Commerce City does. Commerce City has its own tax return. Unfortunately, even has its own tax rules that can get pretty complicated in Colorado. If you want to collect that tax and remit it, our system, it's part of the setup. You tell it to collect that tax. If you don't, then you don't have to. Do you have to collect in any other state? Only if you want to. So, you know, our system gives you the ability to be fully compliant. it also gives you the ability to choose the level of compliance you want. And let me give you an example on how that's relevant here. Let's say that you make one sale for $100 into Vail, Colorado. Are you going to register with the City of Vail and now have to do tax returns on an ongoing basis to Vail to remit $10 in tax? Well, our system will allow you to do it. You can be 100% compliant. A lot of small businesses will make the determination that I can live with that risk. It's $10 in tax. I don't know if I'll ever go up there again. For now, I don't want to collect it, and I don't want to remit it. The real key here, especially when you start talking about scenarios like that I'm bringing up, is if you do collect it, you have to remit it. That cardinal sin in sales tax is to collect the tax and not remit it. In any other state outside of Colorado, it's just simply settings to determine. You tell it whether you want to collect or not, and that comes down to your nexus. Okay, so I'm going to read the next question here. In Colorado, the tax rate varies on the item and where the business resides. I don't see how we can program all the different scenarios. We have thousands of customers that use our system into Colorado. When you say the item and where the business resides, you're talking about local nexus and whether the product and service is taxable at the local levels, depending upon what you're selling and what services you provide. We may have that research in our system natively. So, good example, downloadable software. If I go run a transaction into Commerce City, and I'm going off the top of my head because I haven't done that demo in a while, or online demonstration where I ran that transaction, I believe the downloadable software is not taxable at the state level, but it is taxable at that local jurisdictional level. So we have a lot of those rules, but it depends upon what you're selling. So you could contact me, and I could let you know.
I don't see any other questions from our viewers.
Yeah, I don't see any others. I want to preemptively answer one other question, and a lot of people ask us about our pricing. So AvaTax is transactionally based for pricing. That means it depends upon how many tax calculations you're doing and how many tax returns that you remit. The concept of the price model is that it's inexpensive for a small company that doesn't do a lot of business in a lot of states. It costs a lot more for a company doing tens of thousands or millions of transactions in lots of states. So the pricing should make sense in most cases. So if anybody is having challenges with sales tax and would like to find out what it would cost to automate it and get it off your plate so we handle it for you, please reach out to us. We'll do an online demonstration of the product live so you can see exactly how it works. We'll go over your scenario and provide specific pricing. Yeah, I'm reading back more from Lawrence Vaughn on the question of the transportation tax. So often state and the RTD tax does not apply, so basically items on our invoices all have different tax rates. I would just ask that you give me a call or shoot me an email, and we'll go over your scenario. We'll go over your scenario one-on-one. My guess is that we handle what you're talking about, but I need a little bit more specific information on the products and services. But we assign all the correct tax jurisdictions. Where it gets difficult, or certainly difficult in Colorado, is if the rules at the state level are different than they are at the city level, or at the local level. If we don't have that research, it's a setup piece. It's basically giving the tax engine some rules on how your items are dealt with at the local jurisdictional level, and then it's automated, so it'll always handle it. What I can tell you is the challenges that you're talking about are almost certainly not easy to do in any standard tax engine in a shopping cart or an accounting application. But our tax engine handles that quite easily. You do have to set it up right to start with, but once it's set up right, it works quite easy. Cool. I don't see any other questions.
Okay. I'll just quickly segue into, Ian presented.
So thank you everybody for it. Yeah, go ahead.
So Ian actually presented a really good, we had a question from one of our viewers about, does Avalara have services to help people get started? And yes, they do. And, I always just want to reiterate that we at WebGility also have services like that too. So if you need any help kind of connecting eCC Desktop up to Avalara AvaTax, we have the Customer Success Squad here to assist you. So if you purchase any installation package, which involves installation and setup, or a training package, which involves training you how to use particular features, and if you need some type of QuickBooks consultation, that can be given to you. So if you've purchased a plan that has those included, or if not, and you want to purchase that additionally, you can always do that. And so the Customer Success Squad at WebGility is here to help you with that. And if you ever have any questions for our Customer Success Squad about services or getting started, you can always give us an email at success@webgility.com. Also, there are educational resources that are really great for you to utilize in order to help you get the most out of eCC and all of the features that we have in the product, including the Avalara AvaTax extension. And if you go to our help desk, help.webgility.com, you can go to the product documentation, which holds the product encyclopedia of all the features and kind of knobs and buttons that can be pushed and pulled and modified to really get that unique connection between your online shopping cart and QuickBooks. And within our community forum, we also have that within our help desk. So if you have any general questions about how does this work, how does that work, what's the best way to use, drop shipping with eCC, you can always submit a question on our community forum, and the Customer Success Squad is very engaged in that area, and we'll be able to provide an answer for you as soon as we can. And we also have the WebGility blog. And here at WebGility, everyone who works here has a distinct product knowledge within particular areas. So we oftentimes like to share our knowledge with you, and we do that within our WebGility blog. I personally will be writing an article about drop shipping and e-commerce and drop shipping, and because there's a lot of intricacies involved and a lot of things that I've learned and nuances that I've learned in that entire process that I would like to share with our overall users. So stay tuned to our blog for our blog posts, and I think that that part of the education will really be great. And also, if you need support, so if you're utilizing our product and you need some assistance with something, you can always contact our friendly support team. Here's the number, extension 3. We're Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. And if you ever have a question or need to submit a request or a ticket, you can always email support@webgility.com. Now, I would like to talk about our remaining webinar schedule for this particular month. The first week, we talked about multi-channel inventory management. That webinar has been recorded and is accessible within our help desk in the eCC product area. Last week, we talked about getting your QuickBooks ready for taxes. And this week, of course, is Avalara AvaTax and eCC Desktop. So this week and last week was our tax talk week, so talking a lot about getting things ready for taxes. It's tax season for a lot of folks, and we really want to make sure that you're ready at an e-commerce level, a business level, in your personal finances, just getting ready for taxes. And next week, it's all about tips and tricks with eCC Desktop. So I'm going to submit my maybe 5 or 10 tips and tricks for utilizing the product. The support team will be giving their tips and tricks with the product. So, if you really want to learn how to really use those advanced settings that we have in our product, or some slight modifications or just some cool things that we know that the product can do that can really help you, I think it'd be a great webinar for you to attend. Next month's webinars are going to be all about eCC Cloud and QuickBooks Online. So if you're utilizing our eCC Cloud product, I think that too will also be a really good webinar set for you to attend. So stay tuned to our webinar page on our website to learn more about those webinars, and you can register for any one you'd like. And again, all of our webinars are generally on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So we'd love to see you again, and thank you for joining this webinar as well. So if we don't have any other questions, I would just like to thank all of our listeners for joining us today and really getting into the intricacies of calculating sales tax and why that is truly important to any e-commerce business or a business in general. You know, we've examined how tax is calculated, its complexities, and what happens if you're not calculating tax correctly, the repercussions and the risk, and how Avalara can be that solution for you to have that peace of mind and know that with whatever intricacies are with your state, within your local county, the tax calculation is going to be correct. And I really want to thank the National Sales Manager, Ian, for working with us again and presenting this really great information. Thank you, Ian, so much for coming here today.
Well, thank you, Allegra. And thanks, everybody, for attending. Feel free to reach out to us if you have further questions.